First of all, you did something very, very few people actually made me do. You really made me want to change my life and change work. I can actually say that's only happened 3 times in my life. My name is Karl Johnny Hersvik. Most people call me Kalle. Actually, only my mother calls me Kalle. And there's a very specific reason for that. Kalle is much simpler than Karl Johnny. And I'm standing here on stage today because Karen challenged me. Said big companies can't innovate. And my instantaneous comeback was, I don't believe it. Actually, I can prove it's wrong. But let me tell you a little story first. When I'm wearing this mic here, the first time I wore this mic was at a big conference in Houston. You know, the typical oil and gas thing, right? Grand venue, 500 plus people in the audience, small tables, grand giveaways, you know, the whole thing. And this was about integrated operations, which is all about coupling people and technology and creating impact. And this was my first talk in a big audience ever. I was hysterically nervous. And when I'm nervous, I start chatting. That's something that's genetic from the region I'm coming from. And I started chatting with the girl who was kind of putting on my microphone, and I said, you know, this microphone actually makes me feel like Britney Spears. What I hadn't realized that they had actually not had this system, which actually had to shut off this microphone, so that was transmitted. In the break, as people were coming onto this, so 500 people is coming in Texas, in Houston, very serious conference. I came on stage. There's a big Texican sitting about where you are now. He stands up and says, well, you may feel like Britney Spears, but you sure don't look like. It taught me 2 things. One is to keep my mouth shut. And I forgot about that a few hours later. But the second is that things are really, really simple. I am not a great innovator. I'm not creative. I don't change India person by person. I can't really say that I help save a lot of lives. But luckily, innovation is extremely simple. So even I can make an impact. I'm going to talk about 3 things today. I am going to talk about why innovation is crucial, and why big companies, as well as small companies, as well as individuals, need to make innovation a priority. I'm going to talk a little bit about how do we do it. Why is it so simple? And why do so many people find it so hard? And I am going to give you a few examples. I have also something to show today. It's a bit like show and tell, right? First of all, why is innovation so important? To me, it is not because it's fun. It's good that it's fun. It's excellent that it's fun. It's the most fun you can actually have is when you make something innovative. When you make something new that has an impact or creates value. But that's not why we do it. We do this for a very, very simple reason, and that's to improve. Whether it's to improve business, our lives, society at large, save humanity, but we do it because there is a challenge. Without a challenge, there is no innovation. Every problem, and I firmly believe this, every problem has a solution. Sometimes the order is mixed around and you got the solution before you know the problem, but most of the time you know the problem before you think of the solution. If you dismiss that coupling, I can assure you you're not going to innovate. You're not going to create markets, you're not going to create products, you're not going to find entrepreneurs. Every problem, and that's why it's so simple, has a solution. Our problem in the oil and gas industry is a pretty big one. Oil and gas industry is all about big stuff. Personally, I've been in the middle of it since 1998, and I love big stuff. The bigger, the better. I remember that we started drilling couple of thousand meters of horizontal, right? So you go down 2,000 meters and out 2,000 meters. And I remember sitting in a room in Bergen on the Troll field discussing whether or not we'll drill another track. And these numbers are so staggering, you stop thinking about it. We've drilled 15,000 meters, 15 kilometers of reservoir in that well. And we were discussing, should we add another couple of thousand meters? And then it struck me that this is why innovation is so hard. We would talk about this like it was incredibly easy. But if you try to comprehend what we were actually talking about, it's the equivalent of standing on the top of the Empire State Building, trying to thread the needle, which is basically being held by a person standing at the entrance. That's the equivalent in size and scale. And we were talking about this like it was very, very simple to do, because we've learned to solve the problem. Now, our horizon is very big. They're very long. I have projects that won't be making money 20 years down the road. In 2008, this industry was hardly making any money. The oil price was very low. In 2000, 2004, it was $10. That's 10 years ago. So how do I make things happen on a 10-year horizon when I can't predict the future? Second, from 2001 to 2012, our peer group, big IOCs, increased their production by 2%. 2%, that's nothing. The cost, on the other hand, increased by a whopping 147%. What kind of industry could survive a cost escalation of 147% over 10 years? Well, you know the answer, it's the oil and gas industry. Because at the same time, the product increased almost fourfold in value. So you got a problem, a very, very structural one. How do you make sure you can do things faster, simpler, on shorter time horizons, while taking care of the resilience? Because you need to make sure that you are alive until those projects come on stream. The complexity increases tremendously. I remember when we were talking like Ormen Lange was the cutting edge. And Ormen Lange is 400 meters down, it's up this valley, it's subsea to shore, it was the longest multi-phase pipeline in the world, etc., etc. And now, that was 10 years ago. Now we're talking 3,000 meters. We're talking 150 kilometers subsea to shore. And we talk it's no problem at all. Just let's go do it. We'll put down the Oscar subsea compressor in 2015. If you put that structure into the football stadium, it'll fill the football stadium. It'll spend a fifth of the entire Stavanger consumption of electricity, 20 megawatts. And it'll produce some 12 million cubic meters of gas. We started working on that project in 1993. It's going to cost 15 billion in installation cost, but it's also cost 3 billion in development cost. It's a long, long development horizon. This is the kind of complexity I'm talking about. It's not small scale, it's not small stuff, it's major. In any other industry, this would change the impact of the company. Now, innovation, on the other hand, is really simple. Technology is really difficult. You need to be an engineer or a scientist or have a couple of PhD. I don't have either. But I can do innovation, because innovation is all about listening to the world. I have a son. He's 13-year-old, and you know the saying, from young people and drunkards, you get the truth. It's not true. You get it from teenagers. My son is 13. He thinks it's extremely fitting that I'm in the oil and gas industry because I'm basically a dinosaur. I can remember when I was 13 and thought about my parents, and they were also dinosaurs, so I think it's actually something happening. However, the point is that when you feel that pace is evolving, right? My 13-year-old thinks I'm a dinosaur. There are luckily people out there who are not dinosaurs. we can actually follow. This drawing is also a story. You can see I have pretty big ears. I actually thought about it when I was a kid or a young person, to have them kind of shaped so it was kind of tighter to my ears, because I was really concerned about the way I looked, etc. But I didn't do so, because I never got around to it. and now it's a little bit of a characteristics. It's a bit of who makes me who I am. My 13-year-old, and I turned 31 last week, actually. And this happens to many of us when we turn 30 or 31, we start to feel that we need to do something about our lives, so I started running again. Took up a pastime that I loved 10 years ago. And the reflection from my son, well, you're not really listening to the world, Dad. Most people who turn 30, they get Porsches or Ferraris, or at least a heavy motorcycle, and they start doing cool stuff. You just started running. So listen to the world, get a life, do something new. Listening to the world is a much more profound than that. It's about collaboration. It's about understanding how other people think. I'll give you a few examples. Listening to the airline industry has made me realize that we think about technology development the wrong way. We need to think about it in generation rather than in single projects. We think wrongly about standardization, because we think about it simply from a cost perspective. We don't really have taken the IT impact out in our industry, because we're not able to implement the organizational changes it means, etc., etc. So we've gone out into the world. We've set up projects with JPL, NASA, talking about autonomous robots, talking about microsensors rather than mega sensors. We've set up projects with institutes and universities all over the world, creating academia agreements, where we basically ask them to come with radical ideas. I've said to my organization there will be no more basic research done in Statoil, because that will force them to interact with communities where basic research are being done. And to make sure that happens, I'm also feeding money and expertise and challenges, problems, because they also need problems to solve. But I'm all about quality. I'm all about ambition and big goals. To me, it makes no sense that we don't have at least 2 universities in the top 100 in this country. We should have the ambition to do so, because quality breeds innovation. And then this challenge: can small people innovate? Can big people innovate? Are big dumber than small? Big companies, and I admit that, have a structural problem with innovation. Let me give you a challenge that's current. The shale gas revolution in the US. It's a big thing. You can read about it, just Google it, and it'll millions and millions of hits. Not a single of the big IOCs actually picked up on that trend. Why? Bright geologists, excellent well technologists, great drilling people, great technology. It didn't suit their business model. But it changed the fabric of this industry. So now we are changing our business model to suit the problem, because we didn't really realize that there was a problem and a solution, and it needed to be connected. But sometimes big can do what small can't. And I consider myself a one-stop shop for internal entrepreneurs. I have massive resources in terms of engineering, production, labs. If I so desire, I can throw a team of 100 engineers, clear 1,000 square meters of lab, and construct a flow loop with a single decision. That's impossible for a small entrepreneur. The question is, do we have the right challenges? So I'm looking for challenges. I'm looking for problems to solve. But I'm also looking for solutions to problems I do not know I have. And if we have the right attitude to this, we can solve these problems more efficiently, and this is my claim, much more efficiently than a local entrepreneur, because we're much more targeted. The Oscar case, for example, is never going to be developed by a local entrepreneur. They will never get the cash. 3 billion to develop a compressor. Are you crazy? In 1993, drill something that's going to be installed in 2015? Absolutely not. Do not think so. But with the interaction is fundamentally important. And if we think about this and forget to listen to the world, we will end up in that situation where big companies can't innovate. But luckily, it's extremely simple. And I'll give you a few examples. The first one, innovation is not necessarily about technology. And I hate to admit it. I mean, I love technology. Big wells, big compressors, platforms, everything painted yellow, drilling deep into the reservoirs. I'm all passionate about it. But innovation doesn't necessarily need to be about technology. In typical, it took us 77 months to develop a satellite field that's phased into a main field. 77 months from discovery to production. And that's 77 months, you're spending money, the rest of us sitting here, you're not generating cash flow, etc. So we took a different approach. We said, well, we don't really need to think too hard about concept because we know basically how we're going to develop this. We don't really need to order every equipment for a single project because we have a lot of them, so let's order everything at once. Let's standardize on a single set, and we created a catalog. We simplified the decision process, we simplified the drilling process, we simplified what we were going to order, and we ordered things in advance, so we're actually sitting in stores. We cut the time from 77 to 36 months. And now we're kind of improving, and the goal is to do it at 30 months, which is excellent. Right? But sometimes these challenges, when they're being formulated like this, and this was a challenge from the senior corporate, do it in 30 months. They say, oh, no, can't be done. We've got all these challenges and technical requirements and steering documentation. Well, I don't care. Do it in 30 months. And if you're consistent about the challenge, about a problem, let your organization find the solution. That's why innovation is so easy. Even I can do it, because I don't have to come up with a solution myself. I got a big organization, 42% are PhDs, so why should I have one? The second challenge, we got a field called Troll. You've all heard about it. It's big, it's massive, huge gas column, and then a thin oil column. Started out at around 12 to 15 meters, which is about the height of this building. Doesn't sound like much, but when it's 1900 meters below the reservoir, it's pretty thin. And you're trying to put a well that's about this far away from the oil-water contact, then you understand that this is a big challenge. The challenge with these reservoirs is that they produce a lot of water. We don't like water. We're not a water company. We're an oil and gas company. So somebody said, I need a valve that's separating oil from water and gas in the reservoir. Can't be done. It's beyond physics. It's impossible. But we started working it anyway because somebody put that challenge to us. This doesn't look like much, does it? It's a little bit of steel. It's got only 3 components. If I can actually open it. It's got only 3 components. It cost about 2,500 Norwegian kroner to make. It's like this. 500 of these in a well represent an increased net present value for that well decision of 800 million NOK. It was made and designed by 2 guys, 1 theorist, 1 experimentalist, and their inspiration was, strangely enough, how do you control water flow in steam generators? Beyond physics, but really inside physics. So, summing up, innovation, extremely simple. The hard part is to define the link between the problem and the solution. The ability to open up your mind to the world, to environments that you don't normally work with, and to really comprehend that you can develop stuff that is beyond physics. Thank you very much.